This time, we visit the terrifying and heartbreaking case of Mary Vincent, a 15-year-old girl who survived one of the most brutal attacks imaginable and lived to make sure her attacker would never hurt anyone again. She was 15 years old, running away from home, alone but hopeful. She stuck out her thumb on a Californian highway, trusting a stranger to get her where she needed to go. Instead, she was driven into a nightmare. She survived, but just barely, and what she did next turned her into a symbol of resilience. It was 1978. Mary had run away from her home in Las Vegas trying to escape a troubled family life. She found herself in Berkeley, California, but after a few weeks, she wanted to go back. With no money and no transportation, she did what many young people did in the 70s. She hitchhiked. On September 29, she was standing at the side of the road with two other hitchhikers trying to get a ride south. That's when a blue van pulled up. Inside was a man in his 50s. He said his name was Larry. He was going south, but had room for only one person. The other two hitchhikers felt something was off and warned her not to go. But Mary, tired and desperate to get home, got in anyway. The man's full name was Lawrence Singleton. At first he seemed harmless. He offered her food, he talked about his daughters. But as the hours passed, Mary began to feel uneasy. When she sneezed, Singleton touched her neck in a way that made her skin crawl. When she noticed they were heading in the wrong direction, she told him. He apologized and turned around, or so she thought. Eventually, Singleton pulled over near a remote area, claiming he needed to relieve himself. Mary stepped out of the van to stretch her legs, and that's when everything changed. He struck her with a hammer, dragged her back into the van, tied her up and raped her repeatedly. But he wasn't finished. At some point, Singleton pulled Mary from the van. He said, "You want to be free? I'll set you free." Then, using a hatchet, he chopped off her left arm just below the elbow. She screamed, she fought, she begged. So he cut off her right arm too. He threw her off a 30-foot cliff. Then, thinking she was dead, he got back in his van and drove away. But Mary wasn't dead. Bleeding, broken, and in shock, she somehow stayed conscious. She dragged herself up the rocky cliff, using what was left of her arms to pack the wounds with dirt and mud to slow the bleeding. She walked nearly 3 miles before finding a road. Eventually, a passing car stopped and rushed her to the hospital. Doctors said it was a miracle she had survived. She had lost over half her blood, but she lived, and she remembered everything. Mary worked with police to create a composite sketch of her attacker. It was so accurate that a neighbour of Singleton's recognised him immediately. He was arrested within days. Lawrence Singleton was charged with rape, attempted murder and kidnapping. The evidence was overwhelming. Mary testified in court, pointing directly at the man who had tried to destroy her. She told the jury exactly what he did, the pain, the fear, the strength it took to live. Her testimony was clear, calm and unforgettable. Singleton was found guilty, but here's the part that shocked everyone. He was sentenced to just 14 years in prison, the maximum sentence allowed under California law at the time. He served only 8. He was released in 1987 to national outrage. No town wanted him. Protesters followed him wherever he went. He was placed in trailers and moved from place to place. Eventually, he left California altogether. Years passed and Mary tried to rebuild her life. She got prosthetic arms, she gave interviews, she began speaking at events about surviving trauma and finding strength. She became a mother, an artist, a fighter. But Singleton wasn't finished destroying lives. In 1997, nearly 2 decades after attacking Mary, he struck again, this time in Florida. He picked up a woman named Roxanne Hayes, a mother of 3 and a sex worker. He stabbed her to death in his home. He was arrested and charged with murder. This time, there was no leniency. He was sentenced to death. But he died of cancer on death row in 2001, before the execution could be carried out. Mary Vincent's story is one of horror, but also survival. She turned a moment of unimaginable violence into a life of purpose. She advocated for victims' rights. She pushed for laws that would keep violent offenders behind bars, and she refused to be silent. She once said, "I am not a victim, I'm a survivor," and she is. Her courage helped change laws. Her strength helped countless others find their own. And her story serves as a reminder that even in the darkest moments there is light. Mary Vincent should never have had to endure what she did, but she made sure that the man who hurt her didn't get to hide. And when he came back into the news, she was there again, making sure his name was never separated from what he did. Because she survived, because she fought, and she told the world the truth.